Hello and welcome back to the Reapers, back in the P-51D Mustang for an educational video on takeoff and landing, led by Sherman, who you all know. Okay, Sherman, and we've got Star pissing about here in a different plane. What's the first thing we've got to do before we take off? What's our setup?
Alright, so the correct setup for takeoff is to set right rudder 6 degrees on the trim. This will counter the airplane's torque, which will push the aircraft to the right.
So just to confirm,
Sorry, to the left.
I want that yellow lead to be right by 6, yeah?
Correct.
Roger, that's that done. And what's next?
Your artificial horizon should still be caged at this point. You uncage it using the scroll wheel, and so now it will actually do its job.
Stand by. Ding! Okay, it's uncaged, it's ready to go. Is there any other things we need to set up? What about RPM? Is that already, that's all good at 90%?
I've already set the RPM, but it's ideally should be at a near full position. You want it to be nice and high for takeoff. You just don't want it too high so that you burn your engine.
Roger that. So what we want to do, I guess, is feather in the gas slowly, and then let the nose drop down, and then up to about 150 miles per hour, and then pull up.
So essentially, as you say, feather in the throttle, but all you've got to do is keep the stick pulled back initially to lock the rear wheel.
Roger.
Let it go forward, do its own thing. Release back pressure on the stick as she gets faster, and she will lift off automatically. No flaps required in this configuration. You typically use takeoff flaps if you're carrying a payload.
Roger, I'm ready for you. You go when you're ready, and I'll just follow behind. Charles, give me some space.
Alright, here I go.
Here he goes. Nose is coming down, 120 knots, 120 miles per hour, 130, and a bit of backstick, and she's airborne. Absolute perfection. Gear up. Check gear warning lights, red, and do they go green? Does the light go green when the gear is up?
They will disappear when the gear are up.
Right, well, that was pretty sexy, Sherman. That was literally a perfect takeoff. So let's go out, and then let's come back on a final.
But you forgot something rather important.
No, I've got to put my gear up. There's nothing else to remember.
You set 6 degrees of right rudder.
Oh, no wonder she won't fly right. Roger, turning off. And was that to counterbalance the torque of the engine?
Yes. Now that you're airborne, you don't need to worry about it that much.
Roger.
Decreasing to 250 knots.
Cap side slipping.
Should be fine. A little bit of wind, but we should be able to counter. 200 knots. I'm going to start lowering my flaps to the lowest position.
Roger. Falling behind you in a second.
As pull a left turn onto base. Okay, at 150, so I'm actually slowing down a little faster than I like. I'm going to take the manifold up to 35.
Cap 150.
160. At 170, we can drop our gear, so that will be now.
Gear down. Red light on. Flaps to landing.
Alright, so should be set to go. All we want to do now is bring her in at a nice and slow angle. Should be able to get her in for a landing at about 120.
Okay. Right, so we've got trim to worry about now.
I don't use trim for landing.
Roger. Getting a bit of,
I'm aiming for about 120.
getting a bit of yaw wiggle in my plane. It's just a bit left and right.
She will do that if she's a little unstable. Just try not to stall her. Oh, yaw, not roll.
Roger.
Yeah, she will do that. Right, so we want to come in for a landing with a nose up attitude.
Roger.
If you overshoot the intended touchdown point, that's fine. Just keep following the runway. Don't panic. And there you go. If you bounce like I do, just compensate with a little power and keep the landing gear in a relatively safe landing position.
Roger.
Like so.
I got a little bit bouncy, but I'm down and right behind you.
The main thing with a Mustang is don't panic, and you have to keep the correct attitude to try and get it as close to a 3-point touchdown as possible.
Roger.
If she bounces, just get control of the situation. Don't panic. If you don't think you have enough runway, you can always wave off.
That was a good pair. That was a good formation landing. It's the first time I've done a proper formation landing in the Mustang. Right, well you see it there. You saw exactly what we did. It wasn't the prettiest landing because we're a bit rusty, but it was it was a good enough landing. Hope you enjoyed that. The next video will be guns, bombs, and rockets. So we'll see you later.